is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
And the agony of defeat.
Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
We are in the dog days of summer. 4th of July, just a few days away. And for me, that means barbecues, bathing suits, and baseball. And on the cover of this week's SI from July 1st, 1974, one of the sweetest swings in the history of the game, Rod Carew. Oh, what a hitter. You know, if one can have 7 batting titles, a lifetime .328 average, 3,053 hits, 18 All-Star games, and still in my book be a little bit undervalued, I'd say Carew is just that. Now, I know he didn't hit for power. Great. You can have Kyle Schwarber. I'll take Rod Carew. Welcome to the Past Our Prime podcast, a trio of hosts here as per usual. Billy Mahoney. What's up, Billy?
Not a lot, bud. How you doing?
Oh, just
Ready to go.
Living the dream.
Exactly.
Living the dream. Part of that dream is because Mark Hoffman's here, right to my left.
Everyone's dream and some people's nightmares.
So my name is Scott Johnston. As my grandma Dot used to say, hello, hello. So 4th of July,
Hello.
Here we come. I'm going to ask you guys, were you big into buying and setting off your own fireworks as a kid? And once again, you people at home may not be aware of this, but Mark and Bill, very good friends, and yet they are opposite in almost every way in terms of personality and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to play the guessing game. And I'm going to say, Mark, you were not into buying and setting off your own fireworks.
God, how did you know that?
Yep.
You're like psychic.
Mm-hmm. And yet, Billy, I'm saying if there was a cherry bomb in the vicinity, it was...
Oh, yeah. And you pinch the end and they blow up? Oh, yeah. Oh, there was name it. It was... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
I kind of figured. I was kind of...
so fun.
I was kind of in the middle. I wasn't really like into blowing stuff up, but...
We didn't blow it up. You pinched the end, and when it was done spinning...
Yeah.
Someone told us at school, said if you pinch the end really tight, some of them will blow up. So you pinch it and go, ee, and then push. So I didn't want to hurt anybody, but blowing up was fun.
Now, I do enjoy going to a fireworks show.
Oh, yeah.
As well, you would.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah. So that was a big tradition in my family, was going to an A's game on the 4th of July and getting the fireworks afterwards. And, you know, most
But you guys
Major
didn't
League
do it
teams.
in your driveway? Like your parents set up a whole... Okay, we did that. I mean, as kids, they used to have fireworks on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Red Devil or Red Dragon, whatever it was, you'd buy them. But our parents also still had the big thing. You would just sit in the driveway and shoot them in the air.
Yeah.
So
I lived in an apartment
I never went to a
growing
ball
up, so yeah, we weren't like, you know.
yeah,
And it's funny, if you go back east, certain states, New Hampshire
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, they, you know, like right around now, there are fireworks stands all over the place there selling. You can't do it here anymore.
here was an interesting one. Back when I lived in Texas, I never knew they did this. But on 4th of July, they lit off fireworks, and then 3 people walked out with guns and started shooting them in the air.
No.
I've never seen that. Yeah.
You know, if you shoot the gun in an
Yeah,
area, the
I
bullets
thought-
go up, but they have to come down.
I remember thinking,
No, they don't come down.
I kept thinking they do come down, but I just they were going, yeah, watch this push. I'm thinking, okay, they've taken it to a level. Yeah, a level I'm not really ready to go. You know, just pull out a shotgun and just push. I don't
But
get it.
it's interesting because I would have to go to my cousins in Culver City for fireworks because where I lived in an apartment, we couldn't do it. But now as an adult, and I've lived in Pacific Palisades for 26 years, and July 4th is like a big day there. So you run the 5 or 10K in
That's
the
right.
morning.
You do that.
Which I like. That's my one run a year.
Uh-huh.
And then in the afternoon, they have the parade through downtown, which is great. And then at night, they have the big fireworks show where everybody gathers for 3 or 4 hours to watch a 15-minute fireworks show.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah,
It's still a lot of fun.
you know, South Pass High used to do a thing where you'd go there at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you would
becomes a whole big fun thing.
Yeah, they got the music
Yep,
playing,
yep.
and the local people singing and all that kind of stuff, and you bring a blanket and a picnic and stuff, and
But think of
cap
how
the
you're
night off at 9 o'clock, and when you were young, it was great. You just saw fireworks, and the parents would go home, and now it was time to party.
That's what I was going to say. Think of the difference, because as you're an adult, you like watching the shows, but when I was around 16 to 20 something, 4th of July we're getting drunk. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, you're like, fireworks.
That's a good combination.
Looking for girls, doing fireworks, going to parties, sitting on the beach.
And if one had to go, it was the fireworks.
Exactly. The girl sits over there like, okay,
All right, let's get to it. Start off as per usual with the scorecard. Mark, tee us up.
The National Transportation Safety Board in 1973 came out and said that people are always afraid of flying. There are people that have that fear. But in 1973, only 227 people died in commercial plane accidents. There were more than 1,100 that were killed on their bikes. Boatings, over 1,700, 3,000 on motorcycles plus. Now, the people that lost it, walking around, is because a car hit them. So I guess, maybe that plays into it. But, yeah, in terms of planes,
And every once in a while, almost every issue, there's something in an issue where I'm like, why is this in Sports Illustrated? This is not a sport. Flying isn't a sport. They didn't necessarily say,
bicycling.
But in the next issue, there's a big article on cycling.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cycling, yes.
It's a sport.
But these people aren't dying from cycling.
No.
These are people on bikes
but
that are getting...
The way I drive, I definitely believe I have a much greater chance, 50% chance of dying in a car accident than ever in a plane accident.
Well, I always like when they say plane accident.
That's a happy thought.
I know. But I'm saying, in a plane wreck,
Cheers.
they always say the same thing. Only 227 people died in a plane wreck. If I'm one of those 227, it's always like, well, only, Yeah, what if you were one of those? It'd be like, well...
And the difference is, if you're in a car and you get hit, chances are you'll be okay. If a plane goes down...
I can talk to you about that. I've done it 15 times, so I can, we can go through that if you want.
The other thing is that I always think about with flying is, we grew up basically, late 60s, early 70s when that was probably around when we first all got on a plane. But there were times like in the 50s and stuff when people started flying and planes hadn't been around all that long.
And they used to smoke on planes. It was like a free-for-all.
I can imagine at that point being scared to death to get on this death trap,
You mean you're going in a thin little, teeny little fuselage, 30-some thousand feet in the air.
Yeah.
And it's going to make it, and you got enough gas?
Yeah. Yeah, where the guy in the front's going, what does this do?
Exactly. Autopilot, it can go to hell.
Well, if you think about it, if you can fly someone back then, you couldn't fly from LA to New York in 5 hours or whatever. Back then, it took a lot longer because the plane speeds and stuff like that. But if you take a train, it's going to take you, a week to make that trip.
That's how we used to do it. I used to take a train from Ohio to California with my grandparents, and it did. It took a long time, and the air conditioner always broke.
Right.
And the food was always not good. So I've been on that.
Yeah. And hence we stopped investing in our trains in this country. And you go to Europe or Asia, and their trains are like hotels on tracks.
They are.
Right.
And ours are like Motel 6s.
Yeah.
On
I took
tracks.
one in Switzerland, and everything was really nice.
Yeah.
They're
beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah,
around here you could, maybe lose your life.
Yeah, the trains in Japan were fantastic. They moved really fast. Though I don't know why Brad Pitt was trying to kill me while I was on that.
Well,
Yeah. You were on the bullet train. That's
Right.
probably
Yeah.
why.
Wrong
Get
train.
that right.
That was
dumbass.
probably. Yeah.
Bill, you got a scorecard?
I do. It just shows you even police don't know the people they make friends with. Dick Saxby, he was a detective in Scotland. He struck up a friendship with a guy named Bruce Brown, who happened to be one of the golfers of the clubs there. Their friendship, they became the best of pals. They actually went to the policeman's dinner and danced together. They were just friends. But one thing ended up happening when some of Saxby's police guys figured out what Brown was doing. Brown turned out to be an armed robber, and they ended up having to arrest him. Saxby never, ever knew that's what he was doing. But they were like the best of friends. So it just shows you, even police, if they meet you on the outside, have no idea what you might be doing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? In a way, that's a good thing because if you're a cop, I imagine one of the worst fallouts of being a policeman or a detective is thinking the worst of everybody. And so you come to meet someone and you're looking them up and down, thinking, I wonder if this guy's So if you do that all the time, how could you develop relationships with anyone?
But that's what there was a guy, Paul worked at the White Sox. He was a Chicago detective for many years. And I used to say, Paul, he goes, everyone that comes out here, I've already gauged what issue, if they're going to be an issue or not. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you just know. He goes, so no matter, everyone that I see, the first thing that comes to my mind is exactly what you said. That you just look and go, okay, trouble, not trouble, probably not. That's what he did with everybody. So you're right. To me, that'd be sort of a tough way to live. If everyone I meet, I'm thinking, hey, you look like you're going to be an issue today.
Right.
Maybe Brown was using sex speak,
You had to do that as a bartender.
You did, but maybe, that's true. You had to, you had
How
to size people up.
This guy going to drink and be a problem?
Yeah.
This guy going to drink and be fun?
But those are some, and just like police, those people can fool you. You see a guy come in, you go, oh, he's had a couple drinks, really fun, and then an hour goes by and he's,
Left.
trying to kill
Skipped
you.
out on the bill,
or he's threatening to murder you.
Violent.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'll kill you. Okay.
All right, I got one. It's a pretty big deal. Title IX was passed 50 years ago. That basically said that women get the same rights as men when it comes to collegiate sports, same number of sports scholarships, etc. Now, 50 years later, it's been a boon for women as more women participate in sports than ever before. The new rule also includes transgender issues, which then means that whomever the athlete, whatever they identify with is what they get to participate, which leads to men swimming against women, men running against women.
Okay.
So as per usual, the government, in their search of perfection, ruins something that was good, but we'll see where this plays out.
Well, Walter Byers, who's the head of the NCAA, says pending doom is around the corner if these regulations are implemented.
Look, we're lying to ourselves if we don't still 50 years later. There's one reason for collegiate sports to flourish, maybe two. College football, men's college basketball.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Those still finance everything else.
The women have a small opportunity. They're becoming more of a foothold.
Yeah.
Because the men's, all the guys are leaving early, so it's giving the women that have been there a number of years, so people now know who those players are. So I'd like to think the women can get to at least halfway where the men's basketball is.
Yeah, and who cares if they ride the coattails financially?
Yes.
Use it to their advantage. Mm-hmm. And if it's my daughter and she's swimming, mm-hmm. and they're like, well, this program wouldn't exist without football, then thank you, football.
Thank you, Zach. I'll be at the game. I'm buying
Absolutely.
Tickets. Yes.
But who cares? And but you can't have a men's swimming team that doesn't make any money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And no women's swimming team and say, well, it's because it doesn't make any money. They neither make money. Men's golf doesn't make any money. Men's volleyball, as we found out, doesn't really make money.
Well, I will tell you, I watched the Women's College World Series softball.
Yeah.
Unbelievably exciting. I mean, from the first pitch to the last, Oklahoma UT, just an amazing fun time. You watch some of the women's sports and they are exciting and they are good. You want them to get more of a stranglehold. But I agree with Scott. Can't have the men's and not have the women's.
Yeah. Nope. Mark, you got another one?
Yeah, there's one other one I love called Double Jeopardy. And they say it's not often a tennis player can lose 2 single matches against different opponents on the same day, 1,200 miles apart. That's what happened to Stan Smith. You see, what had happened was there was a rerun, a TV program on CBS called Classic Tennis. And you see Mark Cox just beat Smith in straight sets, and it was played in Austin, Texas. But meanwhile, on ABC, Rod's actually playing live, I would assume, and he's getting beat up by Rod Laver in the World Invitation Classic in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So, a double dipping losing day for Stan Smith.
That is
so
perfect
cool,
because Stan Smith is one of the greatest players of all time. He was the number 1 ranked player in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. I think he won Wimbledon once. He won the U.S. Open once. And if you go back and forth real quick, you can see him lose match point twice in a matter of minutes.
And if you hated Stan Smith, That's the best day.
Right? Right, exactly. Too funny. They said it. Bill, who said what?
Oh, it's Randy Rasmussen, the New York Jets guard and off-season stockbroker. He says, every time I look at the market reports, I love pro football more and more. Yeah, they probably say that nowadays, too.
Yeah.
Well, that's really funny, unless he bought Nvidia like a year ago.
Yes.
But
Which we
yeah,
all did.
we had to, have off-season jobs, athletes back then. So, the stockbroker job was important for him back then.
It was.
Yes.
But it's funny, back then in the 70s, I mean, we look at what the stock market is now, and even, in the 80s, the stock market was what, 1,200, 1,300, it's like, it's crazy how high.
It wasn't
is now.
until the NASDAQ
Right.
started to, the tech, and then it just, it just exploded.
Well, I got to admit something. I love the movie Trading Places, but I have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, that's the commodities market. That's
Still,
tough.
I don't know what that
That's
is,
tough.
but I love the movie and I love the speaking. I love how they do it. I have no idea what they're
Always,
saying.
right? Wall Street, Wolf
Yeah.
of Wall
Yeah.
Street,
No
all
idea.
those movies, I'm like,
We watched the one.
they look like they're
That-
just screaming at
Yes,
each other.
we watched The Wolf of Wall Street. It's like we sat there and went, I got nothing here.
I'll tell you what, it looks beyond stressful.
Oh my God, yeah.
Beyond
Yes.
stressful. Hitters of singular skills. So back in the 70s, there was a value for guys that were called singles hitters. Maybe you heard of a couple of them. Ralph Garr, Pete Rose, Rod Carew. Pete Rose won the MVP in 1973. I think he had 6 home runs. That would not happen anymore.
No.
No chance. But a hitter could not win the MVP with less than, what do you think, 15 home runs?
I
Something
think
like
it'd
that?
be more.
Yeah, but back in the 70s, you could be a home run champ with 20 or 25
Yes.
homers.
Now it's
So-
all about launch angle.
Right.
Maybe not that little, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. In that
Yeah.
range.
Yeah. Their job back in the day was to make contact, put the ball in play, and something good might happen. That approach is long gone with the advent of analytics. Luis Arraez is the closest
That's
thing
what I
we
was
have.
thinking. Yes,
That's right.
to a
Right.
Rod
He is
Carew,
the
definitely.
And he's been traded 3 times in the last 2+ years. The guy's a
right.
340 hitter. It's just, for some reason, it's not valued anymore. I don't get it. I just don't get this. Joey Gallo still plays.
I know he does.
Regularly.
I know
the
he
guy
does.
has and I'm
He
not
hits
even
like 170.
exaggerating.
Right.
He's hit under 200. Maybe he walks a little, not like to the point to where he gets on base at a 400 clip. He gets on base at like 320 because his average is so horrible. And he strikes out at an alarm. Maybe when he was hitting 40 home runs, but he doesn't do that anymore. It just makes no sense.
But that was Adam Dunn as well, though. He would
at
hit
the end of his
201.
career,
Yeah,
for
201,
sure.
yes. He
For
would
sure.
just-
At one point, Adam Dunn was a 270
Yes.
and on base over 400. I can live with that.
Yes,
Right.
but
Kyle
200
Schwarber is a 200 hitting,
Yes.
320 on base percentage with a high slugging, because when he does
Yep.
hit, it's a home run. But
And you got to get him on the right days because he gets in those ones where he hits 5 in a week,
Right.
and then he goes 1 for 17 or 1 for 20 in his
Yeah.
next one. So
I mean, I remember in Miguel Cabrera's heyday, not only could he hit
Yeah,
30-plus
Triple
homers,
Crown.
but he bat 340.
Right.
He'd give you the best of both worlds because he made contact.
yeah, I
But
mean,
you-
people say like Manny Ramirez, what a goofball he was. Manny Ramirez is a freaking stud.
yeah, he's a good hitter. He could do anything.
Oh my God.
But I'm saying, if you looked at this crew, and one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that he bunted 25 bunt hits. They don't even at White Sox spring training. They used to have a little place over in the corner of their field where they would work on bunting every year. It's been gone for years. They don't do any of that. But Rod Carew, you gave him the opportunity, he'd put it down.
Yeah.
This because remember they used to do the switch or do the shift. Rod Carew, if he was playing in these days, he would have bunted down that left field line, or
they couldn't have shifted on
They
him.
couldn't have shifted
They couldn't.
exactly.
He'd
exactly.
be like, "Oh, you're going to give me a hit? Thank you."
Yeah, and the thing is there was Earl Weaver thing. I remember, what is it, a single slam or whatever it was.
Right.
And nowadays, that's all they wait for. That's all they wait for, guys to hit home runs. And if they don't, it's like, oh, you failed. And there's no embarrassment about strikeouts. There's no nothing. And I love the single hitter because I loved Ichiro a lot. He was the same type guy.
Yeah.
There are 2 things that fascinate me about Carew, okay? First of all, in 1974, do you realize there was not a day in that season that he was batting under 300?
He
He was over 300
Really?
every day that season. because he started off hot and he never did. And he was flirting that year with 400.
He was. He was.
The other thing I found really interesting about Carew is apparently, do you know why he started chewing tobacco?
No. Did
you read that one?
Yeah, I did, but go on. It's great. It's great.
He would drink 50. One time he drank 15 Cokes in a game.
That's right.
And by chewing tobacco, it made the Coke taste awful, so he stopped it. Yeah. So the big question is, what's worse for you, chewing tobacco or 15 Cokes?
15 Cokes a day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they say you can clean your toilet with Coke. So I'm assuming if you can clean your toilet with Coke, what it's doing to your body, but cigarettes are what? Not good, or chew's not good either.
I used to love drinking Coke, and then maybe going to the movie I drink Coke, and now I never drink it. The only time I drink Coke is if you're in Europe, they don't serve iced tea, so you have to get a Coke. And when they put like a Coke with like a lemon wedge or a lime wedge in there, it's actually really nice. And if you just have one, that's fine.
So it's the end of June. He goes 2 for 4 against the Orioles to raise his average to .399. As you mentioned, Billy, in 1972, not only did he have 25 bunt singles, but he did that in 36 at-bats.
Yeah,
that's a .694 batting average on his bunts. So that's a weapon. Once again, not to get back on this, but you're starting tonight, okay? Your leadoff guy sees that the third baseman is playing way back, and he bunts, and he has a 70% chance of having it be a hit. I'll take that every time.
Every time. How is that not a stat? I mean, like an analytic thing where you go get these guys to know how to actually use the bat.
So he says, all some of these guys want to do is hit the ball in the seats during practice, Carew says disdainfully. I concentrate on moving the ball around. He's an unassuming guy, very gentlemanly like on and off the field. At the moment, he is studying Judaism toward the possibility of embracing
and
that
he would
faith.
Convert.
And as we all know from Adam Sandler, he did convert. Remember the Hanukkah
That's
song?
right. That's right.
Not O.J. Simpson, though.
He,
His manager said he could hit 20 home runs. They say this about all singles hitters. Pete Rose, Ichiro, you name it. They could. Wade Boggs, right? Mm-hmm. Wade Boggs did do it. He's like, you want me to hit home runs? All right, I'll hit home runs. But you have to change his swing and his approach. He's not going to do that. So.
And I said this story that Pete Rose said he could have been a power hitter if he wanted to, but he chose not to.
But you think, if they did, and arbitration being the way it is, if Rod Carew would have done that, hit home runs, they'd get on him and say, well, your average dropped from 388 to 310. And he'd go, because you wanted me to hit for more power. But your average dropped. So in a lot of ways, he had to keep doing what he was doing, which I loved. I mean, I love the fact guys were on base because that gave an opportunity to the players behind him. And the one thing about Carew I read in 19 years, he never struck out 100 times in a season.
No.
Never.
Yeah.
That was where I read the other day, or someone said about Tony Gwynn, an umpire. If Tony Gwynn took a pitch, I knew it wasn't a strike. So I knew it was a ball.
Yeah.
That was
said
probably
that
the
about
same
Ted
with Carew.
Williams.
Yeah.
When Ted Williams would take a pitch, that meant it had to be a ball.
Yes.
He could read the seams on the baseballs was coming in the middle.
Yeah.
That's amazing. God, just one day, 10 minutes, I'd like to be able to do that. See a ball the way a major leaguer sees it, because I can go to the batting cages and go, I know it's coming down the middle so I can match my swing, but it'd be great to be able to see seams on a ball.
Well, baseball's such a reactionary sport.
Yeah,
you
it
have a
is.
split second to figure it out. Because I remember in Little League once, there was a pitcher on the mound, and he's nodding to the catcher, and he starts tapping his knee. And I'm thinking, I think he's going to throw a low fastball at the knee in the lower half. So I was just prepared for it. And as soon as he threw the ball, I was going to swing at that pitch.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was right at my knees, and I hit just a bullet. The problem was it was on a low trajectory, and it was still rising when it hit the fence and bounced back. So instead of me getting a homer, I got a really long single.
That's right.
Son of a
hard
bitch.
A hard single.
Well, you've got no wheels, obviously.
Well, I don't.
Should have been at second for sure.
No, the way the fence worked was really weird. He came in.
Hello there, Mr. Malone. What's new? Moses Malone is graduating high school, and not since Lou Alcindor has there been a more coveted high school player. But what I found interesting about this was coming off the heels of the two-part series on Long Beach State and their improprieties that they just casually mentioned that he got straight A's, Moses, to lift his GPA to a C average.
Yeah.
Do you know any people that got straight A's that then brought their average up to a C? Now, I know maybe straight A's that brought maybe their grades up to B plus or something, but that means he was getting D's, and now he's getting straight A's. Yeah, Billy, you had the straight A's.
Let's just say in high school I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They had to put me in 7. I had to take 7 classes my final year in school. And I got A's and B's, so I brought it up to a C average.
Yeah,
so
I have a good one. I have a good one like that. So I used to go to my dad's for summer vacation, spring break, winter break. And one year, I want to say 8th grade, physical science, I got like a D-, okay, in the fall. And then in the winter, an F. And my parents said, if you don't bring that grade up, you're not going to your dad's for spring break. So I got an A 3rd quarter and then a D 4th quarter.
Exactly. We all did it. When they put pressure on us, we showed up. Yeah. We were great under pressure, but then
they made me go to summer school.
Oh, I never did that. They asked me not to go.
But the funny thing is, he got a car, a 1974 Chrysler Imperial obtained through a lease purchase arrangement, no money down, $1,050 a year. Who's paying for that? So once again, Sports Illustrated does this big 2-part thing on Jerry Tarkanian and Long Beach State and, wagging their finger. No. And then they're like, oh, look, Moses got this car for nothing and he's got his grades all.
But you forgot one thing.
Yeah, tell me.
He did get the $7 an hour construction job, too.
Yep.
So that paid that $1,050.
$7 an hour in 1974. That's
sure
actually
was.
a lot of money.
Because in 78, it was $2.90 an hour. That was minimum wage.
Yeah, I got my first job minimum wage was $3.35.
Yeah, so it was right in they kept
But none of it matters. As we all know, Moses ends up not going to college, skips it. He's drafted in the ABA before landing in the NBA, and after many, many years, the Hall of Fame. So they were right about his basketball prowess. He was one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, underrated.
And they say he was going to go to college, Maryland, but never went. Now, which ABA team drafted him? Any idea?
Wasn't it Utah?
Kentucky.
It was the Utah Stars.
Yeah. I know more about the ABA now than ever before.
Oh, God, yeah, because what we're doing. Yeah, I look back, I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that.
I love the ABA.
Yeah.
Gently with a big kick. Mark, what's that?
It's a runner.
Okay, thanks.
That's right.
It's Rick. I hope I'm saying his name right. Rick Wohlhutter.
He may not find out.
Or Hutter. Right. Yeah, and he had the speediest half mile. He actually was number 1 ranked in the 800 meters in 73 and 74. So he was pretty dominant. And I think he made the 72 and 76 Olympic teams. And I think in 76 he finished 6th in the 1500 meters. But that's like one of the events that doesn't get the pub, like people love the decathlon in the Olympics. They love the shorter
That's
races.
what I like, the shorter races.
Yeah,
and
I
love those.
It's so funny, track and field athletes, if you're a sprinter, if you're running in the 100 or 200, you are muscular.
Yes, you are.
And then if you're a long-distance runner, you're thin and wiry. Mm-hmm. So it's so interesting how the different physiques play into the length of race that you're involved in.
Sure. This guy, strangely, because I see a picture of him, and he looks to be about 275. So he's like Belushi on the track, eating the donuts for breakfast. That
was the best ad in Saturday Night Live. Yeah,
he's smoking
That's why
a cigarette.
I eat. Yeah.
When I have breakfast. Yeah. Billy, what's up next? You got,
we'll just do gracefully from in front. That's Filmer Bai. He's a long distance runner. He grew up in his home village of Karatu near Mount Kilimanjaro. How he trained, he would run after their dogs. They would run with their dogs to go run after hares and gazelles. And he said, the dogs were the speedy ones, but chasing them taught me endurance. And since the altitude there is in excess of 5,000 feet, this gave me the needed stamina for long distance running. And here was a guy that was a record holder as well for many years. Just by chasing gazelles and hares.
Kind of reminds me of the scene in, I want to say, Rocky 2, maybe?
Yeah, where he chases the chicken.
Oh,
and it's also in Creed, because in the first Creed, Rocky made Creed chase the chicken around. Yeah, that does do something for your ability.
I think he would have been a far more effective runner if he'd been chased by lions.
Yes.
You said that, Mark, and you do have a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. His career could have been ended a little quickly.
Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Thank you.
Or faster.
But if he does make it, think how great, you're not scared of some other guy because you've been chased by a lion.
That's right.
Correct. Speaking of boxing, hard sell for some hard knocks. Madison Square Garden was the place, as it usually was, for the heavyweight fight between Smokin Joe Frazier and Jerry Quarry, but it wasn't much of a fight. Mark Cram writes, here were two fighters. One, Frazier, past his prime. The other, Quarry, never having reached one.
Yeah.
Ooh, yikes. Fight goes 5 rounds before the ref stopped it. The ref, Joe Louis.
Yeah.
Did you guys know he was a referee?
No, but when I read that, I thought, wow, Joe Louis. Yeah.
I had to think. I was like, is it Joe Louis?
Yes,
Joe
it
Louis?
is.
And it
And
was.
people
There's
were
a great
upset that
picture.
they didn't stop the fight.
Yes.
Because he
Yes.
was that type of fighter.
By all accounts, Lewis should have stopped the fight much earlier as Quarry took a savage beating from Frazier, not because Frazier was still at his peak, as Mark Cram continues to let us know every time Joe gets in the ring.
Yes.
But beating Quarry couldn't move. It was never his strength anyway, but he was kind of just, and I watched a few of his fights, and I'm going to ask when we have our guest on, Steve Springer, a boxing writer who wrote a book about Jerry Quarry. He looked like he had very little reach, and so he had to get close. And the only way you can get close against Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier is if you can move. You got to get in, get out, get in, get out. And he didn't. He would just go in like a bull in a china closet and take these brutal.
Well, let me ask Scott. Mind you, I was thinking about what you said about him standing there. I haven't watched a lot of Quarry fights yet. Would you say Randall Tex-Cobish, where you just stood there and just take a beating? You're just getting hit in the head, and you're just sort of still coming forward?
Yeah.
That type of thing?
I would say yes, other than I think Quarry had some boxing talent.
Okay, yeah.
At one point, he was, in the top
He was a great white
10.
hope, wasn't he, at a point?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Boxing his whole life, starting like when he was 8, big amateur career.
Yeah.
Randall Tex Cobb was just a behemoth of a man that could take a beating, but he wasn't going to beat anybody.
Isn't Randall Tex-Cobb the reason Howard Cosell got out of boxing?
Yeah.
He is.
Because Larry Holmes was just plowing him. Yeah.
But Quarry, he had 2 brothers that fought. His father fought.
Yeah.
It was a fight. It was a family affair with them. But I thought it was really interesting. He won the Golden Gloves. Not Globes. That'd be interesting.
Yes,
He was an
actor.
Maybe it was all
for other
fake.
fighters.
Yeah.
But he won the Golden Gloves when he was 19 years old and 65. And at the same time, he also worked as a tire changer at a Greyhound bus terminal, which I found fascinating.
Yes.
All that punishment he took, he developed dementia, and
very early.
That's sad.
And
died very young.
He never stopped fighting. He found loopholes to get into the ring into his mid to late 40s.
When did Ali stop fighting, though? Because he found ways to.
Well, he had that fight against Holmes that he shouldn't have been fighting.
Beggs or something?
Would that
or
have
something?
been
Yeah.
80?
Okay.
And then he had one last fight after that.
But the fight against Holmes started taking it easy at him because he used to be a sparring partner.
They said in here, too, at one point, Frazier backed off and looked at Lewis like,
this stops the
hey,
fight.
Come on.
And the thing is, even if we all read the article about Jerry Quarry's mother said, let's go to his wife, said it's over. She later said Jerry put up no fight at all. Really, after the first round, he fought a little then. In the third round, I could tell he was in trouble. I don't know what the matter was. I think he's been around long enough, said his mother. He should get out of it. Yeah. So even his mom's like, I love you, son, but please, we want to keep you around.
Yeah, and this was in 1974.
Yeah.
His last fight took place in 1992.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
That's 18 years of beatings.
Now, he took long breaks in between.
Yeah, but still.
But, he found a loophole to fight in the state of Colorado at the age of 46.
I wonder what the loophole was. Wow.
But as you mentioned...
he did beat Floyd Patterson and Ron Lyle and Ernie Shavers.
Early on. He shocked people when he beat Ernie Shavers.
God, I loved Ernie Shavers.
He did take another savage beating at the hands of Ken Norton. He would retire and return. Dementia pugilistica is what it's called.
Yeah.
Atrophy of the brain from repeated blows to the head. He died in 1999 at the age of 53.
That's a young guy.
Yes. Steve Springer is a veteran journalist for the LA Times, an award-winning sports writer, and the author of 10 books, including 3 bestsellers. He co-authored the book Hard Luck, The Triumph and Tragedy of Irish Jerry Quarry. And Steve joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Steve. How are you?
Actually, not to brag or anything, but I've written 14 books.
I was going to say this could be older. So, you writers don't stop. I forget that sometimes.
Right. Well, I stopped. I got grandkids. I play tennis. I've done my duty. So.
Okay, so 14. We'll stick with 14 until we hear otherwise.
Exactly. What's the 15th?
Hey, Steve, people think back on Jerry Quarry as a human punching bag, but at one point in his career, he had some talent, did he not?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, if Jerry Quarry had been born, I don't know, 10 years earlier or 20 years later, he might be one of the all-time greats. But he was, and timing was really bad because he came along at the time of one of the golden ages of boxing when there was Ali and Frazier and Foreman and so many big names that he just was kind of bounced down to a second level. But I mean, he had talent and he beat a lot of guys. He was what I have his record is 53-9. So I mean, he did his duty, but again, he came along when the superstars were there, and he wasn't that good.
He was certainly fearless, that's for sure, and that probably served him well until later in life when it probably didn't serve him too well. But he started fighting very young, like 8, 9, 10 years old, something like that, and was basically in the ring his entire life, but he could just never walk away at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, he retired 3 times. And then, but by the third time it was a joke. He was made $1,000 to have a fight that he shouldn't have taken in the first place. But I had a quote. He said, I started boxing in 1965. At that point, he said I was changing Greyhound bus tires, making $99.50 a week. So there was no way I would ever give up boxing because that was always in my mind, he said, where I'd wind up again.
When he won the Golden Globes as a kid, when he was 19 years old in '65, when he first got into the business, did he look like he was going to be more than what he became? Did he look like he was going to be possibly an elite boxer?
Well, again, not to repeat myself, but he was an elite boxer in most eras, but he wasn't an elite boxer in the era he fought. I mean, it's just unfortunate for him, but I mean, I was around then. It was a great era. I mean, with Ali and Frazier and that group. But yeah, I mean, if he was around when the Klitschko's were around, I can see him winning a couple of titles. It was just he wasn't going to beat Ali. He wasn't going to. And the other problem he had was that his eyes, especially his eyebrows, were so fragile that time and time again he'd get into a ring with Ali. He did, and both times, and he would one blow would cause the blood to flow, and so that was a real problem for him, and obviously it wasn't anything he could do about it.
Give me the impact that his dad Jack had on his career, good and bad. Because if you look over his fights, he fought. My God, by 67, he had fought 30 times. So what type of impact did his dad have?
Well, I mean, his dad was unhinged at times. I mean, he had a tattoo on his hand that for hard luck. That was, and he always felt, and he never made anything of it in the ring. He never made very much money other than what his son was willing to give him. And so, and he was hard. He was demanding. He felt like if he wasn't going anywhere, his son was going somewhere. And he was abusive. He would hit him. He would pound him. He would try to shame him. And Jerry responded. That's unfortunately why Jerry continued to fight when he shouldn't have fought, because his dad was always hovering over him, telling him, "You can do better. Don't quit. You're going to be great," on and on and on, which is fine. But he carried it to the extreme.
What was his relationship like with his brothers, who were also fighters too?
Right. I mean, they fought each other as much as they fought anybody else. But and they were back when Jerry fought a lot in the Olympic Auditorium, which I'm sure you guys all remember. His family was all there in massive, and they were. Someone added up that they had around 30 brawls at the Olympic Auditorium. Some of the best fights there were not in the ring. They were with his family all around him. What Jerry would do. He was so anxious to fight when he was in high school. He would have a friend or maybe his brother, one of his brothers, pick a fight with someone that the brother was not going to beat, and Jerry would wait. Jerry would give orders. He would hide behind a bush or something, and as soon as that fight started, then Jerry would emerge and beat the hell out of the guy, and that's all he wanted. He wanted his brothers kind of let out and paved the way, and then as soon as the blows started, here came Jerry, and nobody wanted to fight Jerry in high school, but everybody was forced to if they went after his brother or his friend or whoever started the fight.
Now, going to his high school, you talked about a great story about him fighting a future NFL Hall of Famer. Can you talk about that? When he knocked out Ron Yeri?
Right. Yes, Ron Yeri. Yeah, he was, Jerry would fight anybody, and he was a very good fighter, as I've said. I mean, and a guy like Yeri wasn't in his class ultimately, but yeah, that was someone he did fight, and he did obviously he again the elite fighters were the ones he couldn't handle, and the constant bleeding was a serious was seriously held him back. In when he fought Ali the first time, Ali was just was coming out of 3 or 4 years of being banished, and if Jerry had not had the eye problem and Jerry was in his prime, who knows? I mean, he might have given Ali a real fight, but he started bleeding, I think, in the 3rd round, and that was going to be the end of it. So it was sad, but what was really sad was seeing him deteriorate. And I don't mean to jump ahead here, but when in his final years were just horrible. Physically, he was just, he couldn't remember anything. Again, we can go into this. I'm just saying that's he had a lot between his father's abusive behavior and being in the ring with superstars, and then it's starting to lose his memory and all that stuff. He did not have a happy life.
I mean, the fight against Frazier had to have taken such a toll on him. Wasn't in the fight at some point Frazier was like, "Can't we stop this thing?"
Yeah. I mean, again, Frazier was one of those the elite few that there was no chance he was going to beat. And Frazier had a devastating punch. I think any of us who saw the first Ali Frazier fight can remember that left hook that just destroyed Ali in the, I think it was the 13th, the next to last round. So Frazier, he was not going to beat Frazier. He wouldn't have beaten Foreman if he couldn't beat Ali. And he beat Floyd Patterson. I'll give him that. Not for a time. Again, it never was. He had a song he wrote. Jerry did, and in there, one of the lyrics was, "I'm always the bridesmaid. I've never been the bride." Or how to that. I'm not exactly those words.
Right. Can you tell me, Steve, about the Floyd Patterson fights, because those ended up on the right side of the ledger for Jerry?
Right. Well, Jerry was 6 feet tall. Don't off the top of my head don't remember how tall Floyd was, but he was really a blown up welterweight, or he wasn't really he wasn't really the heavyweight you'd expect, and it's not a surprise that he was able to beat Floyd. Floyd was, I knew him some, and he was like the nicest guy, but he just what Sonny Liston did to him was typical of what happened when he got in with a superior fighter or a brawler. And I'm not surprised that he beat Floyd. I mean, because again, I know I keep repeating myself, but he had a lot of talent, and if Floyd Patterson, again, if he had come in earlier, if he had been younger, Floyd Patterson was a heavyweight champion twice, and I think that's someone that Jerry would have been able to beat, as he did beat, and would have been able to beat when he was the heavyweight champion, and that would have been his championship. But Floyd, by the time he fought Floyd, he wasn't gonna get a championship out of it.
What kind of a person was Jerry outside of the ring? You were mentioning music. Was he a totally different person when he wasn't fighting?
No, I mean he was his whole life he was trying to prove how tough he was and how he was going to be a champion and all that, and it carried over into he would, and again he got beaten around quite a bit by his dad, and so he took it out on other people, on younger people, and he had a few songs he sang, and he wasn't, as far as I know, he wasn't particularly brilliant, and he had his disputes with his wives and his brothers and everything. His whole life was really one big fight, to be honest.
But it seemed like I just read your book, which I think is awesome, by the way, the Hard Luck. He seemed like he took care of his mom, though. No matter what he did, he always seemed like he had a soft spot for her. Tell me about that.
Absolutely, he always did, and I don't know, but I believe that she went through her days and years of hell with her husband. So I think he and his mother bonded, and I think before every fight he'd find his mom in the audience and give her a kiss and hug her, and then that was before the fight, any fight, and so. Yes, it was a real soft spot with her. I don't know, but I believe they didn't get into any disputes between the two of them. They were both trying to survive in Jack's world. So yes, he was very close with her.
At any point, Steve, towards the end of his career, when he was coming back out of retirement time and time again, did anyone try to intervene on his behalf and say, like his mother, because in the Frazier fight, she's quoted as saying, "Okay, we're done." I mean, she can see that her son no longer has the skill set, and yet he fought. I want to say like 17 years later or something like that. I mean, it was a long time later. He was still fighting. Did anyone try to say, "Jerry, enough"?
Yeah, I'm sure she did, but the reality was then Jack would step in and go, no, you're not quitting. Well, you're going to get a title. I mean, he overwhelmed everybody else in the family, and they were all afraid of him, including Jerry at some point in his life, although he kind of outgrew that. So, yes, I'm sure. I know his mother was always looking for a way out for him, but Jack was never going to allow that to happen as long as he was around.
At what point did the dementia start setting in? I mean, was it well before his ultimate passing?
Well, it was gradual, and again, back then, who knows if it was Alzheimer or exactly what form of dementia it was, but I think it started when he just couldn't remember things, and he'd kind of make fun of himself, saying, he wouldn't acknowledge that there was a problem. He was just, that was stupid, or I can't believe I didn't think of that. I couldn't remember that. And then it kind of grew and grew until toward the end, when he went into the Hall of Fame, I think in 1995, because he died in 1999, and people surrounded him for autographs, and he couldn't remember how to write his name. I mean, that was. It was really bad, and eventually he fought being hospitalized, but eventually, I mean, he died of pneumonia. But for the last, I can't really remember exactly how many years it was, but certainly by 1995, it was full blown. So let's say a couple of years earlier than that it started with a memory problem. So at one point he couldn't figure out how to brush his teeth. I mean, think of that. So
he finds a loophole, as we mentioned, Steve, and fights that last time in Colorado, of all places, in 1992. What were the circumstances that led to that fight?
He didn't. He shouldn't have. I mean, he shouldn't have been in the ring a lot toward the end, but that was the worst. Like I said, he did it for $1,000. He was beaten brutally from the first round to the sixth round till somebody finally stopped it. It was just he had no business being in the ring at that point. I mean, a couple of years earlier he probably shouldn't have been in the ring, but this was the worst, and that finally made even him realize that he was done.
You mentioned that this was a golden age of boxing, and for the three of us in here, and I'm sure we've talked to other guys who covered boxing. I mean, did you know at the time what a special time, especially in the heavyweight division, that this was as you were covering it?
Well, I mean, I quickly realized that Muhammad Ali was way above the rest of the rest of the world, and he was. I came up with this thing where I'd ask people who who would have won a fight between Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali. What I mean by that is, Cassius Clay had all the moves. He was fast. He was nobody could touch him. He was brilliant. He could turn around. But by the time he became Muhammad Ali, he'd slowed down. He was taking punches he shouldn't have taken. He still won. I mean, to me, the greatest fight I ever saw, and I wasn't working then, was the Thriller in Manila. I mean, I thought neither Ali or Frazier should have ever fought again. Both of them were permanently damaged. But at that point, he still was able to. He became a kind of a Jerry Quarry. He'd stand still and just pound people away and take incredible numbers of blows, which I assume was what caused his Parkinson's. So anyway, to get back to the main subject, Ali was special, but Frazier was brilliant. Foreman was brilliant. It was, and as you saw these fights, you saw the first Ali. The first Ali fight that in 19 what year was it? I'm trying to remember. But with all the first time he fought each of these people, you realize just how special these fights were, and just to watch them, and it was just I don't know how to explain why suddenly in this 10-year period or whatever it was, these guys all came along at the same time. I mean, if you'd spread them out, each of these guys would have been the reigning champion for years, but they just all came along at the same time.
Yeah.
And by the 80s, it was Hagler and Hearns and those guys, and it was more of the middleweights.
Right. How would Tyson have done if he had been fighting in the 60s and 70s? Would it have been an afterthought? He couldn't hang with these guys?
Well, Tyson was great because he fought guys he could beat. He fought, but as it turned out, his fighting years went on, he never came from behind in a fight, and Foreman would have killed him because he was much taller, and Ali would have beat him because he was much slower, and Frazier would have destroyed him. So I was covering then, and I thought he was one of the great fighters early on. But when I saw the way he was in the second half of his career, when he wasn't able to keep up with these guys, I realized that he wasn't as great as I thought he was. The second half of Tyson's career really kind of opened up people's eyes to the fact that he wasn't one of the all-time greats. He was one of the all-time greats among that group, but that group wasn't particularly brilliant.
If Cuss and Jacobs had been with him the whole time, maybe he'd have a longer career. That second half wouldn't have had the downturn that it had.
I mean, Cuss, it's funny. Tyson at that point in his life was crazy. But anyway, I did an interview with him. It was just he and I and his trainer, and I said to him, "So what would your life have been?" This was after he was done fighting, and I said, "What would your life have been like if Cuss had lived?" And he said, "Well, he wanted me to. I can't do the voice, but he said I wanted him to settle down. He wanted me to settle down and get married and have kids, and I would have done that." And then when somebody says something as a joke and then they kind of chuckle, he said this dead seriously. I got the tape recorder rolling. He says, I would have had a lot of kids." And he looked me in the eye and he goes, "And I would have killed every one of them." And it's this cold voice. So when you're interviewing someone, you go, "Okay, moving right along here."
Yeah. But what is so interesting about Tyson, I still remember the Beverly Hills press conference when I don't think he was on his meds, and then he started just acting crazy, and he jumped on a table and he ripped his shirt off. And to think where he is today, I don't think anyone thought he'd still be alive today after seeing that display.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't know how I knew, but I knew that he was in jail when he beat up those two guys when he was on a motorcycle. This wasn't the rape thing.
Yeah.
So I knew that John F. Kennedy Jr. had come to see him, and that always fascinated me. I was thinking, so I got it when I got a chance to do a one-on-one with him again, I said, "Did John F. Kennedy come and when you were in prison?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What did you guys talk about?" He says, "Well, it's a funny thing because he was lecturing me and he was telling me because I didn't wear a helmet when I was on my motorcycle, and he was telling me that if I didn't wear a helmet, I would die." And then Tyson looks at me and he goes, "Who the hell would figure I'd live longer than him?"
Yeah. He has a comedic side to him, that's for sure.
He showed it in
The
The
thing, I
Hangover.
don't know if you know about him, but he is obsessed. I don't know if he still is, but he was obsessed with pigeons. He had hundreds of pigeons in a warehouse, and he just loved to be in there with the pigeons. I never understood that either, but whatever. By the way, the most amazing thing I ever covered was the fight in Vegas when he bit Holyfield's ear. That bit off his part of his ear.
Twice.
I remember.
Yeah,
I actually remember. I was sitting in the front row, of course, in the LA Times, and I saw him bite off a piece of the ear and then spit it on the canvas. And I had this conversation with myself, and I said, "Well, you're not going to write about that because that didn't happen."
Right.
That didn't just happen. But I will say this: there's somebody crazier than Tyson, because when the fight was finally over, Holyfield went to the hospital and they got the piece of the ear and they put it on ice and took it to the hospital to reattach it. And when they got there, it was gone. Someone stole a piece of someone's ear as a souvenir. Now that person is sicker than Tyson.
Oh, absolutely. But what's funny about that, where he bit his ear, and it relates to Bill. So I'm working at CBS that Saturday night, and for some reason we couldn't get the feed in. We were going to get post game and everything, couldn't get the feed in. Bill was at home and was watching the fight on pay-per-view.
That's right.
And all of a sudden he's giving me play-by-play, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh wait, and Tyson just bit Holyfield in the ear," and I'm going, "What are you talking about?" He's giving me these blow-by-blows, and I thought he was joking with me at first.
And I thought Mills Lane was the best. You bit him, Mike. You bit him. It was just chaotic. It was so great.
Off of that, one of the great moments with Tyson was, so he's the Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to take his license away after the biting incident. So we all go there and we're all in the audience, and there's like a 3-hour discussion back and forth, and we should do this, and it's all out in the open. And Tyson's sitting there, and finally they say, "Okay, we've reached our decision," which ultimately was to take his license away for a year. And they said, "Mr. Tyson, do you have anything to say for yourself before we officially rule?" He says, "Yeah, I just got one thing to say." He said, "I'm not Mother Teresa, but I'm not Charles Manson either."
That's a white gap there.
And Steve, I love your Tyson impersonation. I love it. It does bring him back.
Follow up what you said before about he was off his meds.
Yeah.
He legally by the rules of the commission, he had to be off his meds the last week before a fight. So, and number one, that was actually worked out well for him because it made him totally insane. Right. But he could not use his meds the last week before a fight.
Now, let me go back to Quarry for a second.
Sure.
Now, by reading about him from reading your book, he was a good-looking guy. He not only did he box, he got to do a lot of TV shows, but he also had a friendship with one huge celebrity. Can you talk about, or do you remember his friendship with Elvis Presley?
Yeah, actually, there was two of us who wrote the book, and my partner really kind of got into that whole thing, so I didn't follow it as much. I knew about it, but Elvis loved to just spar and do things. He loved boxing, and he loved to get in the gym and work out. So I think that was their connection. But it was. He didn't have any lack of women following him. Let's put it that way. He was in a couple of movies too.
He was.
If he had all his brains intact for a while, he could have had a very happy life and career after boxing, and he wouldn't have had to go through those fights that he shouldn't have taken in the latter half of his career.
How much of it, Steve, was him being labeled the Great White Hope?
Thank you.
How much did race play a part in his, here we have a chance at a white champion in this era where the where the African American fighters were now the dominant ones?
Well, I can tell you this. I know that he hated that. He hated that expression. He hated to be called the Great White Hope. So as if he was in a subsection of the sport and wasn't really with the real fighters. So I mean, he detested that. And anytime anyone would bring it up, he was quick to attack them, fight back, and say, I don't want to hear that. So yes, that's it. That's what he was called by some, but he didn't. He had no part in that.
Who was in all your years? Who to you was the best fighter, pound for pound? Who was the best?
I was Ali. I mean, there's no question. I mean, just outside the ring, the press conferences and it was sad. It was really sad toward the end when he really couldn't speak. But I tell you a quick thing. I've interviewed a lot of people in my life, and I don't ever introduce myself and tell them who I am and all that. But when I first time, it's actually the only time I met Ali, and this was way past his boxing career, and I said, Muhammad, I want to talk to you. My name is Steve Springer. I'm with the LA Times, and he says, I know you. I know you. And you think because of the way he was that he really didn't understand things and couldn't. He was as sharp as ever. He just couldn't show it to people because of his limitations. So he says, I know you. You're that guy that throws chairs on TV. Well, he was making a joke that was Jerry. Right off the top of his head. I mean, he knew even though he couldn't articulate it. Layla, if I could digress for a minute. Layla Ali hates me, has always hated me because
Why?
Because he threw the chairs.
That's it.
Because the PR guy Brenner had called me one time. We were friends, and he said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Layla Ali's in town, and she's promoting a show. Could you do an interview with her?" And I said, what do you want me to talk to her about? Oh, just, anything. It doesn't matter. So he set it up, and I sat with her. We talked for an hour, and we went on and on and on. And somewhere in the middle of that interview, I said to her, and the tape was rolling, I said, so how's your dad doing? She says, not good. This might be the end. We feel he's reached a critical point, and we don't know how much longer he's going to live, but this could be it. And then she goes, anyway, so we go on. That was in the middle of the interview. So when I'm done, I mean, I'm a reporter, and what's the best thing that came out of the interview?
Yeah,
Muhammad Ali might be near death.
Right.
So I went with it. I quoted her. She said it, and the story ran around the world. And she went crazy, and she's yelling and screaming, and she's yelling at Steve Brenner, and so Brenner calls me and he goes, realize, I call you, I ask you to do an interview, and I get fired. So she fired him because she couldn't do anything to me. So years later, my son Alan was supposed to interview her. And I said, Alan, I'll just give you one word of advice. Don't tell her your last name.
Yeah. So we do the trivia question on this show. I call it 50-50. You get a 50% chance of getting a trivia question right. I try to go back around 50 years, but, it's our show, so we'll break the rules sometimes. Anyway, we'll do a Mike Quarry a Jerry Quarry trivia question. He did a little TV and film. True or false, his very first TV appearance was in an episode of Batman?
Well, I was just looking over last night the things he did. I don't know if Batman came up, but I could certainly see him in there. I'll say yes.
You are correct. It was called Ring Around the Riddler, a boxing theme, obviously.
Oh,
no lines. But he was like he wasn't even an extra. He was in key scenes, But that was his first bid. But I'm actually going to do a bonus one. I always ask the guests a trivia question. I'm going to ask Bill and Scott a trivia question about you right now. True or false? Steve was in the biopic Ali and played a Cuban sports writer. Is that true or false?
That's true.
That is true.
That is true.
Steve?
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah.
Let me say one more thing about that. The money I made doing that paid for my daughter's wedding.
There you go.
Wow. Wow.
I got to tell you one more thing. This is great. Speaking of the movie, Will Smith was played Ali.
Right.
So at some point where there's so much dead time, and he comes up to me, Will, and he says, "Hey, you're with the LA Times. You're the boxing writer, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I want to ask you something." He says, "I'm thinking that when this filming is done, I've really gotten in shape. I did this for 9 months. I'm doing really well. Beating all these big time fighters are there, and I can handle this. I'm thinking of taking a fight after this is over. What do you think?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "These guys are missing you because they're getting paid to do so. Any one of these guys could kill you with one punch. Are you nuts? You think you're really a fight?" And I was really going strong. "No, I think I could do it." I go, "Well, let me tell you something. You can't do it. These guys will kill you." I said, I said, you're in show business. You know this isn't real. This is fantasy. Why would you even think this is real?" "Well, I says, no. Okay, and let me ask you one more question. Let's say you could fight, which you can. You make what, $20 million a movie in those days?" I said, "You want someone to beat up your face where you would, you'd be scarred? Are you nuts? You are not a fighter. Don't even say that." I just couldn't believe that he really thought he could become a boxer.
That's what Mickey
Although
Rourke
it
did.
turned out
That's
after what
what-
happened at the Oscars.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm saying that's what Mickey Rourke did. Mickey Rourke was a good-looking guy,
Right.
quit,
And then
went
he
into boxing, and you
got-
see his face now, and he's
Oh, yeah, he got messed up.
disfigured. Yeah.
But in today's day and age, he could go fight Jake Paul or someone.
Oh, right.
That's
He
true.
could do that. He could do that. But he really thought that these guys were all going down because he was throwing punches and that they couldn't touch him.
Oh,
I go,
God.
believe me, it's not true.
Well, Steve, can I ask you, Steve? You've got coming up in November, Mike Tyson fights Jake Paul. What do you see happening in that bout?
I don't follow Jake Paul or any of those guys.
Yeah.
But
But Mike
I don't even
Tyson.
follow boxing now much because it's not what I knew as boxing.
Yeah.
But I still think Tyson would kill him if he wanted to. I mean, he's a professional fighter. He was a professional fighter, and this kid's just, he's fighting fellow nobodies. I just don't see any way that Tyson wouldn't win.
Can boxing come back, or is it all mixed martial arts now? There's no way boxing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just not. I don't care about it. I'm not a fan. I don't. Boxing was what I really enjoyed boxing, but I wouldn't want to cover it. I don't want anything to do with it. And I don't even know
Who does?
I couldn't name three big fighters.
I think
Right.
Tyson
around
Fury.
now, boxing.
Tyson
so-
Fury is the only one.
Yeah,
Fury. I was lucky I got in at the end of the really golden era.
Right,
And I'm
right.
glad I did. But
Well, I give you props, Steve, for telling the truth to Will Smith, because a lot of people in that situation would have said, "Yeah, you probably could do that," but you were just like aghast, like, "Are you freaking nuts?"
exactly what I said.
So the book is Hard Luck: The Triumph and Tragedy of Irish Jerry Quarry. It's one of 14 books written by Steve Springer. You can get them at all the usual places, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, blah, blah, blah. Steve, thank you so much for talking
Steve.
with us today on the Past Our Prime podcast. We had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, good luck with this. I hope you guys do really well. And maybe I'll start following.
I'll send you a link to some of the past shows. And
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. Another
Wow.
guy who covered boxing back when boxing was
Must-see TV.
Yeah,
That's what
I
it
mean,
was.
from the golden era there through about Tyson.
Right.
I mean,
That's great.
Tyson was a for lack of a better word, a crazy town at the end of his career.
Yeah,
Right.
yep. But at the beginning,
But even then, even when it was
yeah,
Crazy
yeah.
Town, it was front page. It was the story.
and remember, Tyson would walk out in just no shirt,
Nothing.
black shoes, and black shorts, and it was just like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
We
it's
ain't
on.
messing with this guy. Yeah. So I'm in Vegas and I'm doing a blog and I call over. They're doing this big watch thing, and Mike Tyson and all the former champions are out there. And Mike Tyson was Mr. Vegas at that time. So I said, "Do you think I can?" I called the PR lady. I said, "Can I get maybe a couple minutes with Mike?" She goes, "Mike Tyson?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, I don't know what kind of mood he'll be in, and I can't guarantee your safety." I said, "Well, I said, I'll get in and out. It'll be quick. She goes, well, give me a call in a couple of days. So I call back, and she says, you still want to interview Mike? And I said, yeah. She goes, well, you can try. She goes, just, be careful. So Mike Tyson comes off the little dais up front, and he's up top on the stage. He comes down. I follow right up. I get right in. I said, Mike, Bill Mahoney, I do a blog here in Vegas. I said, get a couple of minutes with you? He doesn't stop walking. He's walking right at me. And I thought, I kept the mic up, and I said, anything? And he goes, you got to start talking. And so he did the interview with me. I've got him right there. I'm thinking. Wow. And then my one Jerry West, I'm working for Scott helped me get a job with the Laker pregame show. We had a girl there named Sheila Washington. Sheila was a great gal, but she would get calls every stupid day that we would be doing the Laker tape in the Laker show. The same guy would call like 5, 6, and 7. 3 weeks in a row. So the fourth week, I get a call from this guy. It's like 5 o'clock. I said, as you know, she's doing the show. I can't do anything for you until she's done. 6 o'clock, same guy calls again. I do the same thing. 7 o'clock, I've had enough. I pick up the phone. He goes, Sheila Washington. I said, listen, I don't know if you have any brains. I've told you this a bunch of times. She's doing the show. Get it through your head. She can't talk to you. And he goes, will you tell her Jerry West called? I go, I'm sorry, Mr. West. I didn't mean to. He laughed. He goes, I'm sure she gets a lot of calls and it must be frustrating. He said, you're no problem whatsoever. Just the greatest guy. And I went from, Hulk to like,
Pee-wee Herman.
Yeah, my little voice went, sorry, Mr. West. I'm sorry. Oh, God. Okay, that's it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Steve Springer's book is Hard Luck, The Triumph and Tragedy of Irish Jerry Quarry. And actually, he co-authored the book with a gentleman by the name of Blake Chavez. You can get the book at Amazon and all the usual places to go and get those kind of things. Steve and Blake, it's a great read. Bill read it and enjoyed it very much.
Read it in one day. 300 pages. It was that good. It was that engrossing. It's that good a book.
Nice. Good. So there you go. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Blake. Nice work. All right, what's next? With each round, you are 1 day older. This is about and written by Arnold Palmer. And as we kind of mentioned last week, when Hale Irwin won at the age of, I think it was 29 when he won his first U.S. Open, but he won his last one when he was 44.
45.
45. Okay. So that's about as old as golfers win on the tour, specifically PGA Championship Grand Slams. So Arnie writes that the recent Open Championship was good for golf and that Winged Foot was difficult the way Opens are supposed to be. He said it made it good for spectators to see pros struggle because the game isn't that easy, but also they might think, heck, I can do that. I don't know anyone who thinks that.
No.
I know guys who golf a lot, and they can see the difference. Even when I think they think when golfers struggle, they don't go, oh, I could do that. I think they go, man, that must be unbelievably hard.
Because it is.
Yeah,
yes.
Right?
Well, Palmer was so dominant in the 50s and 60s, but when the 70s came around, he was getting, older. I think he won 62 PGA events between 55 and 73. So I think that last win was before this article came out. So I don't think he would ever win another PGA
No, he didn't.
event.
He didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is reading this article, the reason I liked it is it seemed really personal.
Yeah.
It seemed like a guy that knew he was getting older, and it wasn't one of those, I could have done this. No, it was like, I'm not feeling confident anymore. I don't know what was going. You just sort of could feel what he was feeling. It wasn't from a man of coming from the place where what we think of Arnold Palmer,
right?
That type of place.
I thought it was interesting as well, Billy, when he said that I'm not hitting it as long, but that's not really the main thing. Mm-hmm. The main thing he said, I certainly miss, as does every golfer as he gets older, is those split-second reflexes of youth. Who knows how many faulty swings turned into decent shots for me? 500, several thousand? Now it is much harder to recover after a bad move at any point in the swing. So what he's basically saying is a golfer knows when their swing is right. And when he would take the club back, as he's coming forward, he might feel that his hips are in the wrong place or he's opening up too soon or something like that. And you can't just stop, So he could make the adjustment
on the fly
as it's going.
Yeah.
And he said as you get older, those synapses just stop.
Right.
Being basically reactionary. So anyway, I agree. It was very personal. I don't really remember Arnold Palmer as a player at all. But man, I don't know if we've ever had a more beloved golfer in the history of the sport.
Yep. That had his Arnie's Army.
Right.
You don't have any of that.
No.
But I just like he said the law of averages says the odds against a man's chances of winning after 40 are at least 100 to 1, maybe as much as 500 to 1. And sometimes I find myself thinking, what am I doing thinking I have any right to beat the law of averages? Why not quietly give up? And when you think of Arnold Palmer, like you said, I didn't really get to see him in his heyday, but those type things, just like, wow, that's, coming from the heart.
Yeah. So if you have a golf tournament, you're a member of the board, you want him there.
You do.
Even though he's not going to win, it's just the name recognition and the crowds were cheering for him. Mm-hmm. And, he's more than a golfer. I mean, he created the Arnold Palmer drink.
He did.
So...
You've kept him in business for years.
Well,
50 years.
Yes, a little splash of the lemonade, not like half lemonade, just a splash of the lemonade's good.
But he, I remember just a personal story. I was at Channel 9 working when you were there. They said to go down Arnold Palmer there was a golf tournament near the station. So camera guy couldn't go. And they kept saying, hold on, 10 more minutes. They said, but I said, it's Arnold Palmer. So I get down there and I'm thinking, I get to talk to Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
And we got there 5 minutes too late. He goes, Arnold would have done it, but he was waiting a little bit. Now he's got to go. And I just thought, darn it, that opportunity was there. But, that's the breaks. But
and I'm not mentioning names, but thanks, Jody Mena.
Yeah, son of a gun. But no, if you look at Arnold Palmer played in the Masters 50 years, 50 straight years.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, you're not even 50, so that,
The cup that grips the world. Of the 100 nations originally entered, 16 finalists divided into groups of 4 were in Germany for a 3-week round robin in 9 cities that would first eliminate 8 teams, then 6 more. The 2 survivors battling for the championship in early July, with an estimated 800 million people around the world watching on television. Yes, we're talking World Cup soccer.
I think I'm sorry. My favorite part of this, not favorite, but most interesting part of this article was the fact that Pele was there.
Yeah.
And that he turned down money to play for a team to take the same money to be a commentator for Germany.
Yeah.
So he was being booed by people and the Brazilians were talking bad about him. I'm thinking, that's Pele, man. Yeah. But that was the big hubbub there. Yeah. I just love that.
What I know about it is for countries, that were in the tournament like Yugoslavia, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
That's true.
And West Germany ends up winning the World Cup that year, and the host city. And people were going, now West Germany, what are you talking about? Whatever.
Yep.
Is that like North Dakota and South Dakota?
Yeah.
I go.
Yeah. Other than that, you go to North Dakota and South Dakota, they don't shoot you.
Exactly.
No, but what's so weird about Germany was, so Berlin is where the wall was.
Right.
That would separate East Germany and West Germany. But Berlin's way on the East Germany side. It's not like it was a border town. It's like snap down the middle of East Germany.
Yep.
But they just, because it was the biggest city in Germany, they said it's going to be, a divided city, half West Germany, half East Germany, even though geographically it was completely in East Germany.
As for the United States, they won their first 2 games to advance to no, they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah. There's no U.S.
They didn't qualify. Yeah. I was going to say,
I'm funny because I thought, I didn't read that. Did it say that?
1974. Scott, name all the soccer players in the world. Pele.
Yeah, exactly. Johan Cruyff. I got 2 of them.
By God. You got one more than me.
Pele. Something. Yeah, Pele. It's when I was a kid, that's all I knew.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's Pele. He
bicycle kick. Pele.
Yeah.
And then he played for the Cosmos.
That's right. That's right.
The New York Cosmos. Yeah.
But you're right. 1,700 East Germans were allowed to cross into West Germany, which is unheard of, to travel to Hamburg in a sealed train, waving flags in the same colors as the West Germans, just with a communist symbol in the center band. And it was East Germany that scored the match's only goal and won 1-0 to the bitter disappointment of the West Hamburg fans. The cup was to the halfway point of the tournament, and the world was watching. And as you mentioned, East Germany beat West Germany that day, but West Germany ends up winning the
Yeah.
World Cup. And they've been a dominant
Right.
World Cup team forever, right? I think they won it not that long ago. All right, let's move on. People, Bill, you got one?
I do. I'm gonna go off one because I like this one better. There's a just so you guys know, in 1974 there was a new insect ingesting champion. That's at the Survival Symposium at Camp Murray, Washington, and it's Staff Sergeant Charles Chapman. This guy munched 102 live red ants in 3 minutes, thus claiming the world freestyle ant-eating title. He said they tasted sour. They were sour with a little bit of an almond taste. Yeah, red ants. Don't they bite? They sting? So
they don't sting until they're inside your body.
Got it. Okay, yes.
We
Dang.
call them shingles.
That's right. Dang.
I don't know. There's a big thing, right? The Mariners. Remember the Mariners the last couple
I
of years
had the
were selling
crickets,
crickets.
the chocolates. I had those.
And?
If you don't see that they're a cricket, they just taste like chocolate. So you're just like, it's crunchy.
Would you get them again?
No, one time I said I'd give it a shot, and they come in a little cup, about that. Yeah,
I feel like that's us just saying, "Hey, bring on the apocalypse."
Yes,
we're all ready to start eating crickets. and grasshoppers.
Exactly,
and,
they do that at other places.
Cockroaches.
Yep.
And look, I know that you're not allowed in this day and age to say one culture is better than another, but we don't eat insects. And
no,
that's one in the U.S. column.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but I just, it's amazing. I'm sure there's still some red ant eating contest somewhere in this world, probably back where it was in Washington.
Well, the 4th of July is coming up. That's the
Damn right.
holiday of all holidays.
That's right. Get those red ants.
You imagine instead of the hot dog contest, it was the ant eating contest. There'd be Joey Chestnut. He's got
exactly 45,000 red ants.
Right.
Good for him.
That's why that's why those kids were all throwing up in the Stand By Me pie
That's right.
contest.
That's
they
right.
were filled with ants.
Ants, yes.
Baseball, kiss the ball goodbye.
This
Minor
is
League
for
Park
you,
in
Scott.
Sacramento, where the left field line is just 233 feet down the line. What was it at the Coliseum? It wasn't that much further,
210
right?
or something like that.
Yeah, it was really
under
really
3.
It was definitely under 3.
Yeah.
But they put the high net up.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's like, the Green Monster in Fenway, if it's shallow, it's shallow,
Right.
And that's maybe why people put like the angle in that one, hitting the ball up high and stuff like that. But yeah, you hit just a really high fly ball to left field that would normally be caught. This ballpark, it's a homer.
I think it's 315 in Houston right now.
Was it really?
315 left field. And that's not even down the line. That's like pretty much left field.
Wow.
But it's a pretty high wall.
Yeah.
It's not as many home runs there as I thought when they built the park. I was like, that's
Remember they used to have that
crazy.
hill in center field?
Yeah, that
They
was
had
a
to
good
run
idea.
up that, Towel Hill or whatever it was. Like, guys were like falling over. Like,
Right.
dude, there's not supposed to be a hill here in center field.
It led to some crazy moments, like the time Sacramento led Tacoma 9-3 with 2 out and a man on in the 9th. The visitors then hit a home. This is like a certain sportscaster, Bill, that you worked for. The team hit back to back to back
8
to back.
That's right.
This one was only
That's
4.
Right. As the Braves won 11-9.
This one was 4 in a row.
Forgot about
To
that.
make
So good.
it,
That's so
and
good.
then a double, and then another home run. So 5 of the last 6 guys go deep, and Tacoma wins 10-9.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the outfield, it often takes 2 hits to score a runner from second base. Thus, the Salons seldom bunt, almost never hit and run, and give up trying to score from third on fly balls to left. That's baseball now. That's how they do. They don't. There's just go for the home run.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And this was when the fence was 230 feet away, not 360. So runners on first have been forced at second on clean singles to left. Runners have been unable to advance from second to third on singles to left.
Yeah.
4 or 5 runners have been doubled off first on flies to the outfield. So a little crazy having the left field, because that's the fence, right? So that means the left fielder's playing at like the 180 mark. I mean, that's just behind shortstop.
And you wouldn't get to you couldn't go to second to third. That'd just be on a single to left.
Right?
Dang. Or you're out at third from a single to left. Like, okay.
Right.
Like, no,
Right.
you just got thrown in. Like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, especially those line drives where you got to wait to see if it's
they're
being
gonna
called.
fall. Yeah.
In Minnesota, it was announced that Harmon Killebrew will be given a farewell after 20 years with the organization. The tribute was not initiated by Twins management, which tried to make a coach of him, cut his salary, and left him out of the 1973 highlights film, but rather by Twin City writers. So, thank you, Twins.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Harmon.
Man, that was like, what was it, Clark Griffith? He was the owner. He did all those type things.
Yeah.
And Harmon Killebrew was this great home run hitter, but he was not a big guy.
He was Mr. Twin, man.
Yeah.
Him and Frank Howard used to battle for the home run title back then.
Frank Howard was a big man.
Yeah, he was like 6'7", 6'8", humongous. And Killebrew was, 5'10", He was not a big guy, but he had quick wrist, quick swing.
This was a weird one. In Pittsburgh, here's the scene. Bases loaded, 2 outs, 3-2 count on Joe Ferguson. On the pitch, he appears to take a called strike. Lee Lacy, who is on third, thinks so and heads for the dugout. Pirate catcher Manny Sanguillen thinks so and rolls the ball toward the mound. Jim Wynn, who is on second, thinks Ferguson has walked and runs home. Lacy changes his mind and follows suit. Total chaos. When players, managers, and umpires settle down, the verdict is that Ferguson has walked, Wynn is declared out for passing Lacy, and Lacy is safe at home. Pittsburgh manager Danny Murtaugh protests, but the Pirates make it academic by winning 7-3. So
I just want to see this.
I just picture like Little League baseball.
Guy walking off the field.
Running all over the place.
I want to see the scorecard from that and how they marked it up.
Right? No thanks.
1-7-6-5-3-2-9-4.
What a strange ending. This is a great one. Eagling the final hole, Curtis Strange, a freshman at Wake Forest, won the NCAA championship for the Deacons and the individual title for himself. How about that? On the last hole of the tournament is riding both the team competition and the single competition, and he eagles it to win, which means that if he birdies it, they tie, and if he pars it, they lose. But he nails, how long was it? It was a pretty long putt, obviously, to make it an eagle. Curtis Strange would go on to have a very nice pro tour. I think he won a couple of majors. He had a 4-year run in the late 80s where he was one of the top golfers on the tour.
He won 17 times on the PGA Tour, and he won the U.S. Open in 88 and 89.
Yeah. Okay, so back-to-back U.S. Open winner.
And one of his teammates at Wake Forest, Jay Haas.
Right.
They both combined 62 PGA Tour wins.
Is
So
that
to
right?
have those two guys
Wake
on the
Forest,
same team at Wake Forest. Yeah.
Do you know that Curtis also had a twin brother named Alan?
That's strange.
Yeah,
That's
very
strange. Yeah. No, I didn't.
Sounds like a Grateful Dead song.
Yeah. Chris Evert wins a triple. We have talked about this before, about how fast Chris Evert was on the racetrack. That's because
She's a horse?
the tennis player signed with a clothing company, and the owner of that clothing company was a big race owner and named one of his horses Chris Evert, and the horse becomes a Hall of Fame horse named Chris Evert. So Chris Evert was bought for $32,000 at the Keeneland Yearling Sales in 1972, who was president of Puritan Fashions. I think it's great to have a horse named after me, Chris said last week in England. It's very flattering. I've never met my namesake in the flesh or watched her race, but I hope it won't be long before I get the chance to see her in action. She has taken the Acorn, the Mother Goose, and now the Coaching Club American Oaks. So the best women's tennis player and women's horse at the time is Chris Evert. A False Spring. You guys read this one by Pat Jordan, the minor league pitcher? It goes to show you that back then, these guys, they were scouted and signed. This guy got this is by Pat Jordan, a minor league pitcher who becomes a famous writer, and he writes an autobiography called A False Spring, where he signs out of high school. Pretty good bonus. I forget what it was, but it was like $40,000, I want to say.
Back in those days, that was
that
huge.
was a lot.
Yes.
And, his struggles in spring training and in the minors. And it's a 3-part series, and I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very, very good writer. He writes, I pitched for 3 years in the minors in such towns as McCook, Davenport, Waycross, Eau Claire, and Palatka before I was given my unconditional release by those same Milwaukee Braves. I never did pitch a game in Milwaukee's County Stadium, nor did I ever again speak to Hall of Fame pitcher Warren Spahn, who he met on the day that he first signed the bonus. He did, however, keep the cash.
I think the thing is, what he says is, And I didn't know this either. He said, what I did not know is that it was a policy of most major league organizations to give their young prospects a taste of life at the top. Because I know the Angels used to always bring their number 1 draft pick up on their broadcast. I'd be going, why is Brandon Wood there? Because they wanted them to get a taste of that, so they'd want to get back there. So with the minor leagues, they'd be so driven to get back there. I never knew that.
I didn't
thought,
either.
wow,
It was
wow.
like a tease. Like, this is what's waiting you.
Yeah, get down there, get back up here. Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting because back then the minor league system was so different. There were so many leagues.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Because now you have A ball, high A, double A, triple A. Back then they had like the Class D Nebraska State League.
Yep.
I mean, just a ton of leagues.
Yep.
He got to throw to, did you read the part? He got to throw to Joe Torre.
Yeah.
You know, and he said he had the sore arms, so it was like lobbing him up. And Joe Torre, what did he say? He said, if you can't put anything on this, and he fired the ball back to him, get the hell off the mound.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's a great little tidbit. And he and Torrey almost came to blows.
Yeah.
Jordan thought his manager would appreciate that he was standing up to this tough young catcher, that he would want that kind of hubris in his player. It's funny how when you go home that night, you try to like put a positive spin, right? You just got into a fight.
Yep.
Or an argument at the very least with your catcher. And that doesn't look great.
Yeah. But you put your foot down.
And, you know, Joe Torre goes on to have this wonderful baseball career, both on the field and as a manager and an executive. And he's like, oh, the manager's going to love that. Mm-hmm. I won't have no hothead guinea on my club, said the manager. And when the season opened, I was 1,300 miles southeast of Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, because he really thought the manager was really going to, like, oh, yeah, he wanted guys like me on his team. No, he didn't.
No,
he didn't.
Not at all. All right, we're getting close. For the record, Mark, what do you got?
ABA says that in 74-75 season, they're going to keep 10 teams. And they've also awarded a franchise to Toronto, which never happened.
Nope.
I think the Buffalo Braves played some games in Toronto. I mean, those towns were pretty close to each other. But yeah, Toronto would be a while before the Raptors came into existence.
Faces in the crowd. Billy, you got
Angel
someone?
Doyle, track and field. At just 16 years old, Doyle tied the world record of 6.5 seconds in the 60-yard dash. This achievement, it'll always stand as the world record due to the sport switching to the metric system just a few years later. So she'll have that record for eternity.
Still.
Yeah, still.
Still the world record holder.
Yep.
That's a great one. That's like you sell the most albums before they started making albums again, but it was always like, oh, all those guys in the 80s, your Michael Jackson's, Thriller, Springsteen's, they were the biggest album sellers because they stopped making albums.
Yep. Right. That's right. That's right. So they'll always have that record, whoever that record belongs to.
19th hole, Bill, finish us off.
Okay, it says, sir, I go to a baseball game to relax, to set everything else aside, but it's getting so bad you can't enjoy a game without having a streaker, Mark, a stripper, or a jerk running around on the field. These people should be fined heavily and made an example of, and trash should not be thrown on the field. I attended a recent doubleheader at Veterans Stadium and saw none get hit on the head twice by soda drop from the top deck. Thanks to Ron Fimwright for a fine article. I hope he got his idea across to the fans. Behave, Mark C. Hartso.
Well, you know what they should do? Instead of arresting those fans and stuff, just keep them after the game, make them do the cleanup. You know, they could.
Sure, after all those drinks, they sure would.
Yeah. Maybe they just hated that night.
But it's Veterans Stadium, isn't that Philadelphia?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm sure there's nothing you could do to those fellers.
And it's a double header. What are those?
Oh man, those are so awesome.
They were the greatest.
And it would be one like at noon, and the next one at like 3, and you never had to leave your seat.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't day-night doubleheaders.
No.
It was actual.
It was 20 minutes after the first game
and Sunday was always doubleheader day.
Yeah.
So you knew every Sunday you're going to have a whole bunch of doubleheaders, but God forbid they do that anymore.
God, could you imagine now, like in your fantasy world, you get like 8 or 9 at bats?
Oh my God, yeah.
Good hitter.
No, because they benched that guy for the nightcap.
Yeah. All right, that's all the fireworks we have for this one. Have a safe and happy 4th of July. God bless America. Boys, enjoy the holiday. Make it a safe one. You got a little one. These holidays are great with little kids, man.
Yes. Yeah, she loves fireworks.
Good.
Loves them.
Good. Just don't let her touch any of them.
No cherry bombs for her.
And,
pinch in the end.
Happy birthday, America. And please let me not rip my Achilles running that 5K.
You won't.
Yeah.
You're running with clothes on, right?
I'm thinking about it, maybe.
Come on, this is a throwback year.
That's right.
For Bill, for Mark, our technical director, Jeremy, I'm Scott Johnston, and we are Past Our Prime.